we think Jordan is leading in this region.
Yeah.
But it's still there are a lot of potential, net opportunities, and still growing. As you said, it's very fast growing market. A lot of shifts happening from commercial to specialty. What kind of specialty? How depth it is. So there's a lot of changes still happening.
Let's be honest, cheap, watered-down drinks aren't cutting it anymore. Raw Beverage Trading partners with venues that want to win. We develop bold, consistent, damn good products made with real ingredients because your customers can taste the difference. Matcha, we're on it. Cold brew, best in class. We're not here to chase pennies. We're here to build brands, loyalty, and bottom line profits. Stop letting cost controllers call the shots. Raw is where margin meets meaning. If you're looking for a partner, not just a supplier, contact sales@rawcoffee.ae or check the show notes for details. Welcome to the very first episode of the newly relaunched Map It Forward Middle East podcast, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and joining me for this brand new series is Shireen Muhaisen and James Lynes from Bunni Coffee in Jordan. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Good morning, thanks, Lee.
It is a really deep honor for me to have you guys on the podcast and for me to start with you guys as the first guest for the new series and for the new direction that the podcast is going. I haven't met a person who didn't have high praises for you. And it has been, one beautiful part about this is the person who introduced us, which is Felipe Croce. So thank you, Felipe, for making this introduction. Through this series, we're going to talk about building a business today where coffee was born, which is the Middle East. And to give people that are listening some context about what this podcast is going to be about, the Map It Forward Middle East podcast is going to be a podcast that is filled with examples of businesses that I think that we should all aspire to be like. And so it was a hard choice to pick between a couple of businesses in this region that I think are just brilliant. And we started with Bunni, particularly because Felipe introduced us and it was a really nice segue into connecting the two podcasts. Felipe is always a massive favourite guest on the global podcast. So it just seemed right to have you guys on the podcast for the first series. I wonder if we could start by you guys introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about Bunni.
First of all, thank you very much for this very nice introduction and this lovely words, and thanks to Felipe. So my name is Shireen Muhaisen, co-founder of Bunni. We founded Bunni 6 years ago, and before we talk about Bunni, most of my experience before going into this private business or building our own business was mostly a humanitarian field. So I've been working for like 13 years with the ICRC, UN, and NGOs. So most of my experience before Bunni was this humanitarian field. And this we joined forces 6 years ago, and we built Bunni together.
Nice.
Yeah, and same for me. So previously came from more of a humanitarian diplomatic world, and then we wanted to step away from that world and do something for ourselves. And through the love of coffee, we thought let's do something with meaning. So we ended up opening 6 years ago in Jordan.
So how did you find your way to coffee?
So that was my influence, I think, more than Shireen. It started back in the days of...
it's his fault, Shireen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Happens to us all at one point, right? Back in the days in the UK, I would say, from, let's say, now 20 years ago, where specialty coffee was becoming quite a thing in England, and especially in London, I'd say. So I would find myself spending weekends and kind of any opportunity I could get, going to London, trying out new roasteries, new coffee shops. So there was the kind of the seeds of interest in specialty coffee. Then I kind of went away from that after university to go down a more kind of, let's say, considered normal or standard career choice. And then I kind of came back to the passion, which is coffee. So through kind of, let's say, the birth of the interest in England, and then followed by, while working in the Middle East over those past 10 years before Bunni, then visiting all the roasteries and reviving that interest. Basically in all the countries that we visited, whether it was Bahrain, Kuwait, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, we would go around and try coffees and kind of, it made us realize that there was something to do in the Middle East for coffee.
And guys, for those who are listening, Bunni has been recognized by people all over the world. I speak to people all over the world and ask them if they knew these guys, and everyone did, and everyone loved them. Queen Rania even posted about Bunni on her social media and her coming to visit there, which was really wonderful to see. I'm a bit of a fan of Queen Rania. So it was really lovely to see that the recognition is coming from what you guys are building from all over the world. Tell us about Bunni itself. What are the things people should know about Bunni?
So when we first came about this idea about Bunni, for us it was bringing all the values and principles that we have, and from our humanitarian work, all these values, but as well have the authority to apply it, have the flexibility to make it part of your world, whether it's your business, if it's workspace. So you have this flexibility to apply these principles. So for us, Bunni it's not about just serving coffee or selling coffee. It has more depth to it. It has more meaning, connecting with farmers, connecting with your community, connecting them together. So it's bringing the stories from where it starts to where it ends. If that makes
beautiful.
sense.
100%. And so you guys only work in specialty coffee or specialty and commercial?
Only specialty.
And all direct trade arrangements?
Sorry, excuse me?
So it was 95%.
Direct trade?
Yeah. So it's more of an economies of scale thing, right? So if there's anything that could be worthwhile bringing direct, then we bring direct. So over 95% of what we bring is all direct. Yeah.
And the reason I ask those questions is because people want to, particularly in our region, we're all in the Middle East, particularly in our region, people are looking to understand how to build businesses, and they're looking, what does a specialty coffee business mean? How do you source coffee? How does all of that impact the way that you're doing trade in the region? And we're going to talk about some of those things through this series. So that's the reason that I ask. With regards to this conversation that we're having in this episode, the coffee landscape in the Middle East, can you give people a kind of understanding of what specialty coffee and commercial coffee looks like here in the Middle East?
Yeah.
So in the Middle East, coffee has very rich and deeply rooted culture and traditions, yani back to centuries. But yani, in the past years, also a lot of international and global trends has influenced these traditions. So you would see like two words of coffee, So the Middle East present two words of coffee. One side is where precision is, where like every detail matters, where growing methods, quality of beans, very skilled and knowledgeable baristas, everything matters. And on the other side, the traditional coffee, what the old generation is used to, it's very widely spread and widely exist in the region. And it depends also what region we're talking about. So how early these countries or this region joined this movement or been influenced by these trends. So you would see a big gap between these like two words of where coffee is presented in the Middle East.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, like it's really massive extremes. So you have on the one hand the best of the best. Some of the most expensive coffees in the world are being sold off in the GCC mainly, while you have the vast majority are still drinking a kind of traditional Turkish coffee, which is going back to the roots of coffee, right? So you have this huge extreme. In addition to that, as Shireen was saying, for me, it's very much you have two different regions of the Middle East. You have the GCC region in general, where where it's very much a kind of a huge expat community, a lot of imported ideas, and the very kind of fast momentum of where they started and where they are now. You know, when you go back to London, for example, it was a very gradual growth of the specialty coffee scene, as elsewhere in some cities in the West. I feel like in the Middle East, it's kind of on fast forward in many ways.
Yeah.
That's the GCC now in the area that we are in, and also just to add that our whole conversation is through the lens of our part of the Middle East. So when I talk about our part of the Middle East, I'm mainly referring to the Levant. So it's going to be from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine. These countries are very much how we see our part of the Middle East, which is much more of a developing market. Jordan is probably now, I would say, at the forefront of those countries, possibly because it's the calmest, the safest, the most stable country of them all. But I would say it's very much a kind of a different version of the Middle East from the GCC, and in many ways, it's kind of two separate worlds, as Shireen was saying. Yeah.
And me, as someone who is living in the GSCC, is watching things unfold here and comparing it to like when I worked in London around the time you were talking about, James.
Okay.
So I was working in coffee at the borough markets.
Okay. So I was drinking that. So man.
Right. And I was working there probably 18 years ago, 17 years ago. So it was around that time. And I was watching coffee unfold over there.
Right. Exactly.
I've been fortunate to see coffee, specialty coffee, take off at the beginning of my career in Australia, and then in America, then in the UK, and now here. And it's been fascinating for me to watch that process happen in such different velocities in different countries.
Yeah.
I noticed, back in the UK when I was there, in front of every shop that had an Australian barista in it, there was an A-frame that said Australian barista, as though like that's the selling point. It wasn't the coffee, it was the Australian barista. I'm like, this feels rather weird. It just, and then you'd go to the borough markets and you'd see at Monmouth, like they had like 30 baristas, like every step of the way you were handing something to a different barista. And so it was this kind of evolving culture that was, you could tell it was going to become something.
Yeah.
And it was something. And then you see it over here happening in this way where people are leveraging the prestige and the luxury here in the GCC, the prestige and the luxury of specialty in different ways than I feel like it would be happening in Jordan or in the Levant.
Yes.
I know in Syria and in Lebanon, much more so in Lebanon, there's a groundedness about specialty coffee that's still specialty, but it's very grounded in a different way that wouldn't be received well in Lebanon than here. Is that similar in Jordan?
Yeah, some of the coffee shop called specialty coffee, and for them it means like using special syrups, for example.
Right.
So,
Alhamdulillah.
That's what we started 5 years ago. And now there's more on this. That's the base when we started.
Yeah. So Jordan,
We all start somewhere.
as James said, we think Jordan is leading in this region.
Yeah.
But it's still there are a lot of potential, net opportunities, and still growing. As you said, it's very fast growing market. A lot of shifts happening from commercial to specialty. What kind of specialty? How depth it is. So there's a lot of changes still happening.
And it's probably on the par of Amman, which is probably, I would say, one of the lower end of the GCC countries. So it's very much kind of a separate level. Yeah.
Also, the consumer behavior, the purchasing power between these two regions it has a lot to do with these changes.
And do you find that the investment that's happening for cafes, let's say here in the GCC, versus cafes that are happening in the Levant, do you find that the investment of where the business starts is being attributed in different ways? I noticed some very stark differences between, let's say, marketing budgets and cost of fit out here is like astronomical compared to the amount of money that is being invested in supply chain and training and things like that. Do you guys notice something similar?
So, I mean, I think that's one of the benefits we have in our region is that we don't have that pressure, because you are right. There is an expectation. I think that, I mean, we don't have a business in GCC, but you can chat to Matt and Kim about this. But I think there's more of an expectation to have the best of the best. And if you're opening in Saudi Arabia and whatever. So I think that most people, they throw a lot of money into the more of the facade, more of the kind of the hands-on. We don't have that pressure, so we ended up focusing on what we want and what we think is better for the company as a whole. So we haven't invested as much in marketing as most people usually would do, but we focus on bringing the right machines for the right purposes, especially when it comes to energy efficiency and stuff like that. We really geek out on what is really the best use of money for the company, rather than thinking about what's expected of us.
There's such an advantage of being one of the first to market in a new industry where you get to define the tone in your region. And it sounds like you're using that opportunity that has been afforded to you in a really interesting way. And that's what we're going to explore in the next episode, folks. So join us as we discuss building a values-driven coffee business in the Middle East. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. This episode is part of a 5-part series produced by Mapper Forward. Check the full playlist and guest details in the show notes, as well as how you can support our work in the coffee industry. Become a premium YouTube subscriber, explore our Patreon and any brands we've partnered with to bring you this podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really does help us grow our audience.